Today is Saturday, June 22nd. This week, much of the country has been dealing with a dangerous heat wave. And this type of intense weather that gets Americans blasting their AC is just one reason we're seeing an increase in demand for electricity. In some areas, the electrical grid is already struggling to keep up, and experts expect the demand for electricity will only get higher. So what's behind our need for more and more electricity? How are utility companies supposed to keep up? And with the majority of America's energy still generated by fossil fuels, what does that mean for the planet? Is there really another way, or is more renewable energy still out of reach? Today, we're digging into the science and data of it all with Dr. Katharine Hayhoe. She's an award-winning atmospheric scientist who has a long list of accomplishments, including being globally recognized as a United Nations Champion of the Earth and being named one of Time's 100 most influential people. She also serves as chief scientist for the Nature Conservancy and is a professor at Texas Tech University. Her most recent book is Saving Us, a climate scientist's case for hope and healing in a divided world. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Katharine Hayhoe, thank you so much for joining us here on the Newsworthy.
Thank you for having me.
So I first want to talk just about what is causing an increase in demand for electricity. And I know one big one is data centers, especially with all this talk of artificial intelligence. I imagine it's only going to increase. So can you talk about that as well as any other causes of this increase in demand for electricity that we're seeing?
Well, first of all, around the world, electricity specifically is most highly correlated with human well-being. So just imagine what your life would be like, what my life would be like without refrigeration, without electricity to power lights, let alone all of the technology we use. And now technology is spreading around the world too. Everybody has a cell phone. Data is, and the digital economy is growing incredibly rapidly. And so whether it's data centers or for supporting AI or cryptocurrency, we are seeing an increase in the demand for energy. But what we're also seeing is that increasingly through climate action, people are recognizing that it's important to electrify a lot of the things that we use because it reduces pollution, it improves our health, and it reduces our heat trapping gas emissions too. So electrifying our homes with heat pumps, for example, electrifying our transportation with electrical vehicles, that creates higher demand specifically for electricity as well. But then there's a third part to it, and that is the fact that as climate changes, our demand for air conditioning is increasing. I mean, we are already in a massive heat wave as we're speaking, and it's only the middle of June. So we're seeing stresses on our grid in multiple areas, and much of the grid was just not built for the load that it's carrying today, let alone the load that it's going to carry in the future.
And while we're talking about that, do you expect Americans to deal with blackouts this summer?
Well, that really depends on the region, but we definitely see that during heat waves, the risk of these brownouts and sometimes even blackouts can increase if the grid is not stable and prepared. So this is definitely something to be keeping in mind, and also something that we as individual consumers can address because, don't run your energy hogs like your dishwasher and your washing machine in the middle of the day when you need the air conditioning. Run those types of things at night, for example, and that helps take some of the load off the grid temporarily during a massive heat wave.
And in case anyone doesn't know, what's a brownout versus a blackout?
A blackout is just no power anywhere, whereas a brownout is there's some power, there just isn't enough to go around.
And sometimes there's too much on the power grid and we get blackouts unexpectedly. Other times I know that some governments try to do the rolling blackouts to try to conserve some of that energy, and that might be a possibility this summer as well.
Yes, and that really depends on the power grid. It depends on the region. But we know that as the demand is increasing, then also too the supply has to as well.
So you mentioned earlier that electrifying things makes there be less pollution. But if we can't keep up with renewable sources and green energy for electricity, then is the demand for electricity having as big of an impact on the environment and climate change as some of the other energy sources?
No, even if you ran an electric car off electricity that was generated by natural gas, the pollution in terms of both the pollution you breathe in as well as the carbon pollution that's causing climate change would both be less because the process is more efficient. That's not true for coal, but it is true for natural gas. So pollution is a serious reason to move away from fossil fuels, but we still need that energy. Now, let me note something though. In the United States, we're incredibly inefficient with our energy. We waste over 60% of the energy we produce. So the number one way to cut our air pollution and our carbon pollution is actually not clean energy. It is efficiency first. And through efficiency, we can do more with the energy we have. And that is something that I think we have not paid enough attention to in the past.
Give us an example of what you mean by efficiency.
Well, wouldn't it be nice when you're leaving your house to just be able to push a button on your phone and turn off all of the vampire power suckers in your house? Your cell phone charger can suck 90% of the power when it's not even attached to your cell phone. Turn off all the vampire energy suckers except for, the fridge that you need on, or the DVD player if people still use those, which most of us don't. There's just so much room for efficiency, not just at the small scale, but at the larger scale as well. Everything from the fact that LED light bulbs use so much less energy that within just a few months, they've paid back their cost, even if you were given a free incandescent bulb instead, to large scale efficiency in terms of shipping and transportation and supply chains. There's so much low-hanging fruit when it comes to efficiency, and that is a very quick way to save money, as well as cutting pollution and reducing our impact on climate.
What's your thoughts on the individual's impact versus corporations?
Well, people often ask me when it comes to climate action, do we need individual action or system-wide change? And my answer to that question is
both.
Yes, because what is the system made up of other than people? And how is a corporation or a city or an organization or a school or a church, how is any group of people going to change unless someone within that organization says, hey, why don't we consider doing this? So I've realized the most important thing that each of us can do when it comes to tackling climate change doesn't have anything to do with our personal carbon footprint. Now, don't get me wrong. I reduce my carbon footprint with the best of them. And I think taking personal action is really important to live according to our values. We can't just talk the talk. We have to walk the walk too. But I know that we need to make the best solution for everyone, the easiest and the most affordable. And for that, we have to change the system. And to change the system, our voices are the most powerful tool that we have. Where we live, where we bank, where we shop, where we work, and where we vote.
Arguments in support of fossil fuels like petroleum, natural gas, and coal include they're reliable and available with a fairly stable supply, relatively low cost, and these industries provide jobs for millions of Americans. Some experts argue even if there is a transition to other types of energy, the U.S. must work with the cities and states that would be most affected. And the oil and gas industry could and should play a role as these companies have the knowledge, skills, and technologies to help. We'll provide a variety of links if you want to read more about all of this in today's episode notes. But we still have a lot to talk about. Still ahead, Dr. Katharine Hayhoe says it's actually a myth that renewable energy is more expensive than fossil fuels. She explains that and more coming up. But first, a break for our sponsors. So we've had some family in town recently, and when I went in for a hug to welcome my sister-in-law, she immediately said, "Oh, you smell nice." And I was surprised because I had been cleaning up the house and definitely did not put on any perfume. Well, sure enough, it was simply my Lumi Whole Body Deodorant doing its job. But don't just take my word for it. Lumi Whole Body Deodorant is clinically proven to block BO all day long. So whether you're the one doing the welcoming or you've got a busy travel day and vacation planned, have Lumi deodorant in your drawer or your travel bag. Lumi Starter Pack is actually perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes that are perfect for travel and on the go, and free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that actually equals over 40% off their starter pack. So use code NEWSWORTHY for 15% off your first purchase at LumiDeodorant.com. That's code NEWSWORTHY at LumiDeodorant.com. The Newsworthy is also brought to you by Boll & Branch. If you're trying to get better sleep, it can be easy to get lost in all the options and so-called hacks. But one way to immediately improve and transform your sleep environment is with Boll & Branch. The signature hemmed sheets from Boll & Branch are a bestseller for a reason. I have 2 sets, by the way. They feel buttery soft to the touch and are super breathable, so they're perfect for both cooler and warmer weather. Their signature sheets are made with 100% organic cotton using the highest quality thread on earth. My husband and I have actually tried a handful of different brands of sheets before we moved homes, And we both chose Boll & Branch as the sheets we loved the most and wanted to keep. We personally have king sheets in both white and the calming color sky. But Boll & Branch signature sheets actually come in 10 versatile colors in all sizes from twin up to California king. So sleep better at night with Boll & Branch sheets. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets when you use our promo code NEWSWORTHY at bollandbranch.com. That's Boll & Branch, BOLLAND branch.com with the promo code NEWSWORTHY for 15% off plus free shipping. Exclusions apply, so see site for details. Okay, now back to our conversation. I want to talk a little bit about electric vehicles. We hear a lot about them. What impact do they have on the demand for electricity today? And what are you expecting for the future as we are currently building more EV charging stations around the country?
There's a lot of choices out on the market these days. You can look for minivans. You can look for small cars. You can look for SUVs. There's even pickup trucks, multiple ones. So there's a lot of options today. But as soon as these options come online, immediately the solution aversion kicks in. Immediately the naysayers kick in. Oh, you can't charge it. It won't hold a charge. You can't drive that far. Or people even say they're worse for the environment than just a regular internal combustion engine. And you can get hundreds of miles now in one of those cars. And while they do require rare earth minerals in the batteries, first of all, the batteries are developing very quickly. And we today already have batteries that don't require cobalt, for example. But what people don't realize is that mining for fossil fuels requires huge amounts of disruption, whereas mining for rare earth minerals takes only about this much. So there's this idea that if we can't figure out a sort of free energy lunch, so to speak, that we should just keep on doing what we're doing. No, what we're doing right now is a very expensive energy lunch.
Even if we were able to put some of these renewable energy sources into place, would it be enough? And is there an issue storing that energy in order to actually use it?
First of all, I want to challenge your even if, because we are already doing it. In Texas, we have, on some weekends, we have over 3/4 of the electricity on the Texas grid is coming from the wind and the sun today. Last year, China installed more solar energy just last year than the US has in its entire history. Renewables are the fastest growing source of global electricity around the world. So it is already happening, make no mistake. And this may come as a surprise to some people, but engineers and scientists are aware that the sun doesn't shine at night. Also, that the wind doesn't always blow. And so investment in storage is just taking off leaps and bounds. Here where I live in Texas, the different amounts of storage that are already on the grid are just amazing. Whether it's traditional battery storage, whether it's innovative but very basic gravity storage, where you simply use cheap wind energy at night to raise blocks of concrete. And then when electricity gets expensive, you just lower them slowly and use that to turn the turbines. There's also pumped storage underground. There's hydroelectric storage. There's even virtual power plants. And we have 2 virtual power plants on the grid in Texas already that are made up of people's home battery units and home solar panels. So that is the new frontier, storage, but it is also accelerating exponentially. And an Oxford study last year showed that if we could transition the entire power grid to clean energy by 2050, we would be saving $12 trillion. Saving, not spending. And they said the faster we did it, the more we would save.
Yeah, this all sounds so positive, but at the moment, does the U.S. have the resources to match the demand for electricity?
That is a question of how much climate continues to change also, because remember, especially in the summer, that demand is peaking in extreme heat wave events. And our power grid is also put at risk by other events like wildfires that are burning greater area, hurricanes that are much stronger and dumping more rain, floods which are increasing in frequency and intensity. This is part of why I don't just call this problem global warming. I call it global weirding, because our weather is getting weirder no matter where we live. And it's putting our health, our homes, insurance rates, our supply chains, and it's putting our electrical grid at risk. So we need to do as much as we can, as soon as we can. And science is clear that the more we do, the better off we'll be. But it requires a much more concerted investment. And right now, we are not on a level playing field. We are currently on a playing field that is weighted very heavily in the direction of maintaining our dependence on fossil fuels. Around the world, fossil fuels are subsidized to the tune of $7 trillion per year, when last year, the big oil and gas companies made the biggest profits they have ever made. That is not a level playing field, and that is a huge part of what is holding us back from building the renewable capacity and the investment and efficiency that we need to meet not just our climate targets, but to keep ourselves safe.
Even without the subsidizing fossil fuels, is it still cheaper to produce energy in that way?
No.
Is that a big myth that a lot of people, because I've heard that before.
It is a myth, and it used to be true. Like so many myths, it did used to be true. But today, solar energy plus storage is the cheapest form of electricity that we've ever had.
Any final thoughts as we wrap up today?
Climate change has increased the number of billion-dollar weather and climate disasters people experience in the US from 3 a year in the 1980s to 1 every 1.5 to 2 weeks this past year. We are seeing skyrocketing insurance costs. We're seeing huge impacts on people's health and well-being. The costs of climate change are difficult to estimate, but they're well beyond any cost of the transition. Figuring out ways to mine our urban landscape through electronic waste, which is much more affordable way of getting a lot of these minerals than going out and getting them from the earth. Of figuring out more efficient ways to use our energy. Better ways to grow our food, more ways to invest in nature in our cities, to cool ourselves down so we don't need as much air conditioning. There's so many ways that we can work towards a better future, and we can address pollution and climate change at the same time. When we really see that landscape of solutions available to us, my only question is, what are we waiting for? That better world is within our hands. That choice is up to us. Let's not stay addicted to our old ways of getting energy that did serve us well in the past, but let's say thank you with gratitude for the benefits they brought us, and then move forward into that better, safer, healthier future for ourselves, for our children, and for every living thing on this planet.
Well, thank you to Katharine Hayhoe for sharing her insights today. You can check out her website, KatharineHayhoe.com, for more resources and to sign up for her Talking Climate newsletter. And again, check out the episode notes on our website, thenewsworthy.com, to see the links mentioned in today's episode, as well as more information from the oil and gas industry and other experts weighing in on this issue. Thank you so much for listening today, and be sure to follow us in your favorite podcast app if you haven't already to get these weekend special editions, as well as all the news you need to know every weekday. We'll be back on Monday with our next 10-minute daily news roundup. Until then, have a great weekend.